The difference between player motivation and character motivation today on A Gamer's Guide to Life. Hey, quick reminder, I'm Bill Knauer, award-winning game writer, author, and creativity coach. And if you like Gamer's Guide to Life, then hit like and subscribe. You know why? It helps. That's right. Okay, back to the show. Today's episode is another one mostly for DMs, but I think players would benefit from it too. It's about story once again. And all stories have this in common. They have a problem. All stories have problems. If there's no problem, there's no stories. And they have a character, hopefully, motivated to solve that problem. The challenge with a D&D in particular, which is what I play, fantasy role-playing games, is that the player's motivation is often not aligned with the character motivation. What do I mean? Well, I was running recently, I ran the Lost Mines of Phandelver, that very nice introductory module put out by Wizard of the Coast. I heard it was pretty good. I thought it was good, so I decided to run it. I don't normally run modules. I've run a couple recently. I prefer to design them myself, but I ran this because my friends really wanted to play one more 5e adventure. I said, okay. And so in this spoiler alert now, I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert. It's not a big one, but the adventure begins with the players, all first level, being hired by this friend of theirs. This is very important. This dwarf, who's a merchant, is their friend, but he's also their employer. And he's going to be going to this town of Phandalin, and he wants them to meet them there. Okay, so the adventure begins. The players are headed to Phandalin because that's where their friend, very important friend, and employer is located. But on the way, they encounter something which shows them that in all likelihood their friend, or they learn that their friend has been kidnapped after they're ambushed by some goblins. Okay, so their friend's been kidnapped. So initially, the adventure is driven by their desire to find out what has happened to their friend, the dwarf, and try and rescue him. And in the course of doing that, of course, they uncover this bigger plot of all these things that are going on. Okay, I won't get to the plot, but here's the challenge with this setup, which is a perfectly good setup. But when I was introducing it to my party, to my players, I had to really stress to them, you know this guy, you like this guy, you like him as much as you all like each other. And I was talking at this point to the actual players, not the characters who like each other, but the players and how much they liked each other. Because if the players didn't understand that their characters liked this dwarf, that he was a friend of theirs, then they wouldn't really be motivated to rescue him. They probably would, but I wanted them to really want to rescue him. But of course, the problem was the game began, and even though I told them the dwarf was their friend, they had never interacted with the dwarf. Well, a little bit. I had a one or two back and forth, but we don't have time to spend an hour and a half doing role playing with this dwarf. We got to get on with it. We got lives. We want to get to the first combat. We want to get to the exploring. So all I could do is tell them he's your friend. And even though their characters would have known this dwarf for years, would have had years spending time with him, years getting to know him, years trusting him, years laughing with him and drinking with him, maybe being helped by him, maybe them helping him, all these experiences that make for friendship, the players have not had those experiences. And telling someone they're your friend and them experiencing that friendship themselves is not the same. The characters knew the dwarf, the players didn't. It comes down to a fundamental rule of storytelling. Show, don't tell. What does that mean? In fiction or creative nonfiction, it means don't say to me, John was angry. He was really, really angry. He was just so very angry. Trust me, this guy was angry, as opposed to me writing, say, John came home, threw his jacket on the chair, looked around, and said, doesn't anybody clean up this place but me? In the second example, I didn't tell you John was angry. You, hopefully, the reader understood, hey, he's angry. Show, tell. And in D&D, it's telling the characters versus giving them an experience where they can decide for themselves. For instance, if you've ever seen the movie Taken, starring Liam Neeson, I watched it recently, And something struck me about it. So again, spoiler alert, but I think most people know the basic premise of it. Liam Neeson is a guy who's got a very particular set of skills, and his daughter is abducted by these human traffickers. Okay, uh, so we've got this guy who's a hero whose daughter is stolen. Now, from a storytelling point of view, do we really need to convince the audience that he would want to rescue his daughter? No, it's his daughter. But despite that, despite making it his daughter who's been abducted, we spend the first quarter of the movie. I was really noticing this. The first quarter of the movie watching Liam Neeson's character interact with his daughter. He's divorced from his wife, so it's kind of a difficult situation. He loves the daughter, but he can't see her as much as he wants, but he really cares about her. He's trying to help her, and he wants to does this, and there's arguments with his wife about the daughter, and back and forth. So there's all this stuff about him and his daughter. Why? Why are they showing us all this? Why spend all this time? Because even though Liam Neeson's character loves his daughter, and we know it's his daughter, and we can tell you it's his daughter, until we, the audience, have seen, have experienced Liam Neeson and his daughter, we don't feel the emotional urge to rescue her the way we do after watching. In other words, if we hadn't seen him interacting with the girl, we wouldn't feel our own desire to see her rescued, to see his affection for her. Now, not only do we like her and want her rescued, but we feel for him and know how it hurts him to have her gone. That's showing versus telling, even with a daughter. Okay. So when it comes to so with a D&D, when I find myself telling players about how they feel about something, I know I'm on tricky ground, which comes to the other another big part of fantasy role-playing storytelling is the save the world model of game design. Oftentimes, the players are having to save the world in one way or another. Even in the Lost Mines of Phandelver, they go down, or I guess the Shattered Obelisk, they expanded the adventure. There's a bigger plot afoot, and trouble's coming, and the world will suffer because of it. So this is very common. That's fine. It's how fantasy works. So you're always saving the world. Sometimes it's the whole world, sometimes it's a city, sometimes it's a town, or just a family. But just like that friend of the dwarven friend, the players really don't know the world if they've just arrived in it. Maybe you're playing the kind of campaign where you have the players in the same world over and over and over again. But oftentimes you start in a new world. I remember when I was a player in the Descent into Avernus, where this city is sent to hell. And we have to get the city. Oh, I'm sorry, another spoiler alert. We, the adventurers, have to go retrieve the people in this entire city. Okay, it's a great idea. It's a cool premise. The problem was, I noticed as a player, was that once again, as with the dwarf, we didn't have time to get to know the city. We didn't have time to interact with it and grow to love it and all the occupants of it. We had to get going. So there we were in first level, and boom, the city's gone. And so we have to go rescue the city. But again, I really, as a player, I didn't care about the city yet. I didn't have time to care about it. It was just an abstract idea. It was just a name. Now, as a characters would have cared about, it was a whole city. Even though I've never been to, say, Memphis, if I heard Memphis was gone and I was the sort of person who could go to hell and bring that city back, I'd do it because I live in this world. But I don't live in the world of the Sword Coast. And so the character's motivation would be strong to retrieve those poor people sent to Avernus, but mine wasn't. I didn't have time. So, how do we help align our characters, our players' motivation with our characters' motivation? Well, I advocate, especially if you're a DM and you're able to design your own world, and if you have some control over how much stuff the players start with, the characters start with, I advocate starting slow. In other words, at first, one of the nice things about the level advancement approach that 5e takes, and OSR adventures take, and Shadowdark, and to some degree Dragonbane, which is what I'm playing now, is the characters start poor and they start weaker, and so the characters naturally would want more gold so they could buy more stuff, so they could equip themselves better, and also grow in power so they can acquire more skills and spells. And that's what the characters would want, certainly at the beginning, because they just are rather frail compared to what they will be. And at the beginning of the adventure, the players want more gold, more stuff, more powers. And so it is a natural alignment that the characters are starting off as newbies in the world, wanting to explore and get stronger. Lean into that, by which I mean the initial adventures can really be pretty straightforward money grabs, or there's a dungeon over there and it's said to have treasure. It's probably enough of a motivation initially. The players want to get to know their characters. They want to use the characters. They want to test out their spells. They may have rolled it up. They may have done a backstory, but they haven't driven the car yet. You got to go and see what they're like in the dungeon, see what they're like with their weapons and their spells. And so you don't need a whole story initially for the players to be interested. I don't think. They just want to use the characters and they want their characters more powerful. So let it be small. Maybe they got a treasure map, or maybe, like I said, they've been given a rumor that there's a treasure in those old caves somewhere. Let them start slow. The other thing I think that is really helpful, and this is something I do again and again, and maybe at some point my players are going to notice it and start getting tired of it, but I think it works, which is let the characters begin their adventure by going to some region they've never been to. Why? Because in that way, the characters are going to be learning about the world at the same rate the players are. In other words, the characters have never been to the land of two demons, uh, and neither have the players. The characters haven't been there. The players haven't been there. The characters have never been to Phandalin. The players have never been to Phandalin. So that's good. Players are learning about it. The characters are learning about it. And that way, you don't have to do all this exposition, say, well, you know this person, you know that person, you've been there, you've been. No, no, you don't know anything. So everything the characters are learning, the players are learning. I think it's a great way to keep the characters and players in line with each other. Also, you can gradually allow the characters and the players to begin to develop an affection and a relationship to that area. And they don't have to do it right away because they're showing up and their first goal is just to get more powerful, to get more gold, to get more magic items, better armor, whatever it is. But gradually, as they do that, perhaps they will develop a relationship with some of the NPCs. You may not even know which ones. It may happen serendipitously. It might be a character you just roll up. I don't know. Sometimes it happens just by chance. But allow them to develop a relationship with it, allow it to take 2 or 3 levels maybe, and now they know the place. Now they're familiar with it. Now they have some kind of actual experience of this city, of this town, of this place, so that when the big villain comes along, which they always do, and threatens it, now the players may actually want to save the person who's kidnapped or the town that's threatened. One last thing about villains, big villains. Usually, in a story, there's one or maybe two, but some major villain who is, the source of much of the trouble in the land. It's a little tricky having villains because the players have to be aware of them for a long time so that when they finally meet them and hopefully defeat them, they have built up some animosity towards them. I was talking to my friend Garb, who I've been playing with for almost 50 years. And he said, Bill, I realize my desires for a game are pretty simple. Give me a character I like and a villain I hate, and I'm good to go. And getting the players to hate the villain, it takes some work. You could have the villain meet them early on. That's one thing I used to play around with, where when the players are weak, they meet the villain who's super strong, and maybe he defeats them, maybe he just torments them, maybe he locks them up, maybe he takes something from them. So you could actually have them physically meet the villain when they're weak and they can't possibly defeat him or her. The other thing you can do, a la Lord of the Rings, is give the villain his ring wraiths, his emissaries, his orcs, his goblins, the forces that we know as the players, the characters know are coming from him or her. And they're being hassled by them, chased by them, but always the name of the villain should be invoked. Maybe he should have his name emblazoned on their armor. They should talk about him. I once had my characters betrayed by some spy, and as she stuck the stiletto in their ribs, she said, "This is for Lord whatever." I forget the guy's name. Uh, Lord Smoot. That's right. This is for Lord Smoot. So you want to have the characters have a relationship with the villain before they finally meet him. And he should be making their life miserable, absolutely miserable as possible up until that moment. Um, I thought another couple ideas that I think are pretty good for having getting the players to hate the villain is the villain could hurt some of their friends. I described in an earlier episode when some villains stole a goblin that the characters really like and cut off his ear. Or maybe they've made a friend at the town and that person is kidnapped. I had an idea for this overlord who was very greedy and had decided that uh, all magic items found in this realm rightfully should belong to him. And so if he found you had one, you had to give it to him. Oh, I haven't done that yet, but oh, I think my players would hate that. Just hate that. Yeah. So, those are some ideas to how to help line up your player's motivation with your character's motivation. Remember, the point's to have fun. The point is to have fun. Look, your players will have fun if you just tell them you got to go do this thing and you really like this person who's been kidnapped and you got to go save them. They're still going to have fun because they like playing D&D. But the point is to have more fun. And you'll have more fun when you replace experience no, you replace exposition with experience. Replace the exposition with experience whenever possible. Yeah, it's true. Hey, don't forget to subscribe. And if you like it, say so. I want to hear from you. So until next time, this is Bill Canower. Keep rolling those dice. Keep having fun. Hey, look at that. You made it all the way to the end. I'm really proud of you. You know what you can do? Hit like and subscribe. Yeah, that's something you can do, and it'll be awesome. All right, now this is really the end.